Well, it definitely does seem like a lot of these health experts need some actual health in their life. This, as the health world is now officially being turned upside down with the likes of RFK Jr. and the MAHA movement that are making some incredible, amazing changes within government, within the food industry, within the pharmaceutical industry, as we are getting some major breaking news developing and happening right now in the making of this video with one of my friends now officially joining the government after a lot of people were fired that clearly probably weren't doing the job right. There's a lot of things to discuss here when it comes to this very niche topic that I have been personally obsessed about for the last 5 years. And we actually have an expert in the field that will be joining us for today's conversation. Elon, he is the CEO of BioHarvest Sciences, the maker and producer of Vinia, and we are officially working together. And the stuff that you were just telling me a few moments ago was already kind of like blowing my mind, especially when it comes to this very complex, ever so changing dynamic of the health world and the vitamin world, the supplement world. There's so many little niche and nuanced things to get into. But before getting into some of the biggest moves being made by the MAHA movement, by RFK Jr., for the people who don't know you, Elon, how would you introduce yourself? Who are you?
Ooh, that's a big question to start the podcast. Luke, I like to best describe myself. I mean, formally, I'm the CEO of BioHarvest Sciences. We're the global leader in plant cell biology. As a company, we spent the last 17 years building a platform we call botanical synthesis. This is a platform that allows us to take the plant just once. And we know, with the best PhD plant cell biologists in the world, we know exactly where are the cells in the plant that produce the critical phytonutrients or phytomedicinal compounds. We take those cells, and we have an amazing technology, which we'll get into in more detail, where we take those cells and we're able, in a way which is non-GMO, we're able to provide the right surroundings for the cells, the right food for the cells in large-scale bioreactors to get the cells to produce the critical phytonutrients that the plant produces, and at a magnified level with no insecticides, no herbicides, no heavy metals, clean product, no solvents, providing an amazing end soluble, bioavailable, efficacious end product, helping people's overall health and wellness. And we have a platform technology that can do this across 500,000 plants in the plant kingdom.
Yeah, I thought I knew a lot about supplements, and then I started to talk to you, and I'm like, I know very little. And it's really interesting to kind of get deep down into the weeds here. We're going to go a little bit down the rabbit hole, too, because there's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to understand. And, you know, this whole space is mirrored with so much disinformation, with so much propaganda. So we're going to try to cut through a lot of this. But it's pretty clear that when it comes to, you know, your own personal health here, that overall, especially here in America, people's welfare has been going down dramatically. And I think this is in part why RFK Jr. and the MAHA movement have been so revolutionary already. I mean, they were just in power for the last few months, and the changes that they're doing, especially when it comes to things like water fluoridation, especially with just the latest move that just happened in the making of this video. I mean, we have RFK Jr. appointing Dr. Malone. Dr. Malone actually told me about this. We were speaking together at the Bitcoin conference last week, and Dr. Malone was like, hey, man, don't tell anybody, but I'm going to be going in to the White House. We actually did a music video together, too, with High Res, the rapper, which was pretty hilarious here. So it's amazing to see people like Dr. Malone in there and other individuals that have been kind of kicked out, that have been censored, that have been banned, have been attacked previously beforehand for their beliefs. And now RFK Jr. is cleaning house. He just removed all members of the CDC panel, and he replaced them with Dr. Malone, who is now on the advisory committee for immunization. This type of like cleaning house here, I think was needed. I don't know if you would agree, but I think the changes that we're seeing right now, the transformations that we're seeing right now are going to be long lasting, extremely critically important right now. And I don't know about you, but I'm so happy I'm seeing it.
Look, there's no doubt that with new leadership in the administration, we're seeing a breadth of thinking, of fresh thinking, that is going to ultimately change what we've seen in the last 10 years, where Americans' life expectancy has actually started to decline. I mean, that's kind of crazy when you think about modern medicine. So obviously, what we're consuming, how we're consuming, the way we're living our lives from an active lifestyle perspective or not active lifestyles perspective, combination of what we're consuming and active lifestyles is a fundamental factor that's going to help people lead better quality lives and increase lifetime expectancy. And obviously where I come into it, going back to your question, Luke, on my role, yes, I'm the CEO of BioHarvest Sciences, the global leader in plant cell biology, but more importantly, I come to you today, Luke, as an ambassador of 500,000 plants that we have at our fingertips. These plants are screaming for the world to be able to use them and stop abusing them. And I'm here as their ambassador with a technology that can be the critical bridge between the plant kingdom and industry, allowing us to be able to bring phytomedicinal compounds, phytonutrients to the pharmaceutical industry for the next generation of science-based therapeutic solutions, to the nutrition industry, as we look at better, zero-calorie, non-nutritive, natural sweeteners, and doing this in a way which is consistent, doing it in a way where we also protecting the planet for generations to come.
Yeah. And I think it's not just the health of the American people that's failing. It's also the nature around us that is being destroyed, especially with monocropping, especially with a lot of the kind of predatory practices that were never really kind of called out here. All the regulators were kind of like bought off, and like these huge industries were able to just to do whatever they wanted to. But our food is becoming less nutritious than it ever has been before. This is why I've gotten into supplementation, because if you look at the kind of products that we get now and you compare them to what they were a few years ago, you test their mineral content. They're nothing compared to what they were a couple years ago that our grandparents, that our parents were eating. And then all these people are coming down with all these different weird problems. And it's you know, it deserves a nuanced conversation, because I know some people, I won't point fingers at who, sometimes I'm the guilty person too, that are like, no, it's a global conspiracy of all these evil people against me. As I sit here for 8 hours, never get up, eat fast food. And it's them that are the problem, when in reality, it's a combination issue where there are sinister kind of parties out there. But more importantly, it's about us being the consumer and being a good informed consumer that knows what they're buying, knows what they're purchasing, voting with their dollar in a way where we actually are making the smart, right decisions. And sadly, there's a lot of ignorance. There's so much disinformation surrounding all of this.
Also, there's a lot of new technologies out there, which are game-changing technologies that this administration now is broadening their purview, their landscape, to be able to look at other cutting-edge technologies out there across multiple different areas, which can make a significant contribution to the vision, the mission of making America healthy again.
Yeah, and I think it's important for all of us to kind of realize here, and you know, we're going to be working together. I want to be testing out some of your supplements. I wasn't able to test them out because I'm doing a big kind of comprehensive blood test. Actually, tomorrow I'm getting like 140 markers. If you see me on the video tomorrow and I look like a vampire because all my blood is gone from all the tests I do, I'm excited to see my levels before. I want to test different products, see if those products actually make a difference, and then I test out my blood levels, and I do specific tests to make sure if it actually works, because this is how you actually do this. And this is why the Trump administration now doing these kind of blind placebo-controlled studies into so many of the different things that we're kind of relying on, I think are critically important. Now, you're in the industry, you worked for also a lot of major corporations out there. What kind of studies would you hope to see on a federal level? What kind of investigations would you like to see from all of the insight? Because you know how the sausage is made inside and out, from the big corporations now to your corporation here. You know a lot more than the average person does.
Look, ultimately, it's all about making sure that you have the fundamentals right. And the way we try and bring our products to market and educate consumers is really 3 key areas, Luke. It's pretty simple. And I always say to people like yourself, you know, on your shelf there, you've got about I don't know, maybe I'm looking at
70 vitamins.
You have about 100 supplements on
Yeah.
that shelf. That's
Yeah.
one big shelf.
Yes.
You should show a clip of that to your audience. Yeah, I don't know if you can get a camera to come around.
They've
but I'm
seen it.
seeing-
They've seen it
They've
before.
seen it before.
Yeah,
Okay,
they've
it's
seen-
like a pharmacy
Yeah.
in here.
Yeah,
Right? Literally.
absolutely, 100%.
But ultimately, what's important, the average, the supplement industry, for example, Luke, is a $56 billion industry in America. And what's important for the consumers is to understand how to choose the right supplement, which is going to ultimately be able to deliver the efficacy they're looking for. And there are really three key areas. One, the consumers have to understand in the supplement they're taking, they have to ask the first question, which is it soluble? What is the solubility of the supplement? i.e., is the supplement able to be solubilized in your intestinal tract and that you're not peeing or pooping out the supplement? Otherwise, you're peeing and pooping out your hard-earned dollars.
Yeah, and a lot of people are doing that, not even realizing they're
So,
doing it.
our supplement, our Vinia supplement, we know we have amazing solubility. We produce piceid resveratrol. Piceid resveratrol is the gold standard of resveratrol. Unlike human beings, resveratrol is not created equal. We produce piceid. Piceid is 25 times more soluble compared to regular resveratrol. And this is critical from a water solubility perspective. So we know we have an exceptionally high levels based on our internal testing, 82% of solubility of our piceid resveratrol being solubilized in the intestinal tract. The second question you need to be asking is it bioavailable? Does the specific phytonutrients pass through the membrane and go into the blood plasma and last inside the blood plasma for a decent period of time and interact with your cells? This is critical question to be asking. Otherwise, again, it's not going to be doing anything for you. So in the case of our Vinia product, in our clinical trial, we've demonstrated that it takes 20 minutes to go from the intestinal tract through the membrane into the blood plasma, and we know that we last for at least 12 hours with a peak after 1 hour and a peak after 5 hours. This is the power of piceid resveratrol, the gold standard of resveratrol, compared to regular resveratrol, which is in and out of the body much quicker. So our piceid is much longer lasting. And importantly, Luke, as we discussed, because of the technology that we've built, what we call botanical synthesis, and we'll go more deeper into it. And we spent 17 years of sheer grit, tenacity of Israeli scientists, and $100 million on the platform technology. This has allowed us to be able to be the only company in the world today to be able to produce piceid resveratrol from the red grape together with all the other polyphenols, catechin, quercetin, anthocyanins, and tannins, because they have to work synergistically together. And this is critical as people understand the power of the plant kingdom is the synergistic effect of all the polyphenols or antioxidants working together. And the unique technology that we have, we were able to magnify the levels of piceid resveratrol in our cells 100 times more than the piceid resveratrol found in a red grape. So this is where we have the magnification, we have the potency, we have the consistency, we have the solubility, bioavailability. And then the third question you need to be asking is around efficacy. Does the supplement, if you look at that wall of supplements, are there clinical trials on every one of those supplements? Now, let me be clear on the wording. Are there clinical trials, double-blind placebo, published in peer-reviewed scientific journals on the actual final product, not on the ingredient? Often you see people say clinically tested ingredients. Okay, no. The key focus has to be on the final product. And in our case, we are a science-based company. We've spent millions of dollars on in vitro research, on preclinical research, so animal studies, and on clinical research. And we've done, a number of clinical studies, either or double-blind placebo, either published in peer-reviewed scientific journals. We have another study that was presented at the American Diabetes Association convention in New Orleans in 2017. And, this is what you need to be expecting from the companies today. And I think this is where the new administration is going, as they look to basically take a $56 billion industry and make sure that companies are selling to the hardworking American consumer supplements that have unique solubility, bioavailability, and efficacy anchored in the right clinical trials.
Yeah, and that they're actually the right, legitimate thing that people think that they're getting. There's also, new studies that are being done that are finding lead in some of these supplements as well. I'm like, I don't want to be consuming lead. I don't know why I bought this supplement. I think everything's good. And then
no, this is a big the whole issue of heavy metals is a major issue in the industry. And our friends in California took a very, very hard position on this with their unique legislation. And they were probably 10 years ahead of everybody else. As we see right now, the challenges of heavy metals in our foods coming from the soil is a real challenge. So for us as a company, because we're growing cells in aseptic bioreactors, we don't deal with that challenge. Right? We don't have, there's no soil. We're growing cells in liquid media. So this is one of the benefits of our technology. Again, as the administration starts to look and understand new technologies, they'll start to see that there are different technologies out there which can really help bring consistent phytonutrients to the world in a way whereby this can now be the basis for the next generation of science-based therapeutic solutions. For a world today, which is pretty scary, we assume we're going to have 10 billion people in this world. And how on earth are we going to feed them responsibly with a level of nutrients which the human body needs without any effects of heavy metals and pesticides and fungicides, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides. So this isn't a new administration which is taking a fresh look and looking at these opportunities through a different lens. And I think it's going to be great for the industry.
Yeah. And they're also talking about allowing people to kind of use peptides, stem cells as well. They're talking about deregulating a lot of the kind of experimental stuff, especially if people have life-threatening serious illnesses. They're saying, if you guys want to try something out on your own, there's no reason the regulations should block that. But there should be reasonable regulations, especially when it comes to heavy metals that are being found in some of these supplements that people are taking, and they're just buying stuff off the shelf because they're like, oh, someone told me this is good, and they just buy it. And I want to kind of, kind of ask you a little bit more about peptides and stem cells. We could talk about that in a little bit. But one of the things that I just reported on a few days ago is that there's supplements on Amazon with the same exact labels as a lot of the kind of more reputable companies, but they're not from that company. They now have started to do fake supplements with fake ingredients in there with the same exact label, and Amazon hasn't been able to correlate which one is real, which one is fake, and they have all these consumers out there that are selling things that are from reputable companies, but are literally from bootleggers from China that are just putting a stamp that looks exactly like the one that you would get that's from the company you trust, but it's from untrustable companies.
Look, I would say that Amazon, as a very reputable company, is starting to get on top of that. Being in the industry, we've seen our own movie in that space, and Amazon was a great partner in actually helping to shut down those companies that are copying and infringing on your technology. Sometimes you have direct copycats, and basically Amazon takes the action. So I think you're having also, whilst you have a new partner in the leadership in the administration that's looking at things differently, I think also retailers are starting to also understand their responsibility and are starting to take very, very serious actions to help those companies that are trying to do the right thing every single day.
Yeah. I think another step that they're taking, which I think is absolutely incredible, is RFK Jr. announcing that, hey, if you're a medical school, you better start teaching nutrition or you're going to lose your federal funding, which is major. As American doctors receive very little nutritional curriculum. And now he's saying, you know what? We are going to be looking into nutrition. You guys are going to have to study it. You guys are going to have to look into it because that's the key here. Sadly, a lot of the doctors, you have a patient kind of come in there, they just kind of throw pills at him, and they never really look at the true root of the problem. They never really kind of investigate what's really going on here. What's your habits? What's your lifestyles? What are your deficiencies? What's going on in your own body?
It's a great point that you're making. And, the world of integrative medicine has changed dramatically in the last 10 years. In fact, the latest statistic that I heard is that roughly 10% of Americans go to integrative medicine specialists that are looking at you as a holistic human being operating in a very, very challenging world with an environment which has massive toxicity around us,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's in the air, it's in the water, it's in the food that we eat, and are starting to really focus on not the symptoms, but are focusing on the root causes. On if it's a detoxification, or working with you on detoxing your body and getting out the toxins, and all of a sudden you start to understand what are some of the root causes of some of the ailments that you have. So what's amazing to see is that you have a lot of classically trained doctors, and there are a few major medical institutions out there that are training them now in integrative medicine, understanding that you live in a holistic world, understanding the need to get to the root cause, and also understanding the power of the plant kingdom and what plants give us as a way to address some of those challenges from a health and wellness that people have. So a great example is my previous chief medical officer of our company had in his office a little book, and he used to show me, apologetically saying, this is the book that we use, and it was like this thin book amidst all the medical atlases and everything else that they have, which relates to integrative medicine, which relates to understanding how we as human beings operate in a much bigger ecosystem, and the importance and understanding of the power of different phytonutrients, phytomedicinal compounds in addressing some of the health and wellness challenges that we have. This is going to start to change now. People are starting to be much more open-minded. It started with, obviously, the challenges of COVID. It started as well when we saw recently life expectancy start to decline. I mean, it's crazy when you think about that. So people are now starting to take a much greater holistic perspective on their health. People today want to make sure they live longer, they live a better quality of life. And in the last few years, it's the draw has come from the consumer. And what's great now with the Make America Healthier Again movement is that you're getting now that magnetic effect where it's coming now from a much more broad-minded regulator who's also looking to make some tough decisions in certain areas which needed to be made. And a good example is a few weeks ago when the new administration said certain artificial colorants need to be out of the food system. And, given a lot of evidence that relates to the impact that these artificial colorants are having in people's overall health and wellness and behavior. So this, to me, was a major milestone from this administration. And similarly, what it means for people like me, as I said, yes, I'm the CEO of BioHarvest Sciences, but I'm actually the ambassador for 500,000 plants. Luke, there are plants out there with the different anthocyanins, the different polyphenols and antioxidants that can produce those colorants. It just takes companies like us to be the bridge to be able to do this in a way with unique consistency, unique predictability, and economic viability. Because to be able to do this at scale, you have to be able to get it to a price point that you can democratize these phytonutrients, which now produce natural colorants, into the food system. Because if it's ridiculously expensive, then you're limiting that impact from a health and wellness perspective to people that can only afford premium foods. So obviously for us, the focus has been specifically in the last 5 years on how we scale our technology. Today, we produce our plant cells in bioreactors of 1,200 liters. Our plan from a process engineering perspective is in the next 2 years to get to 5,000 liter bioreactors. And it's that maniacal focus which will allow us to democratize the unique phytonutrient or phytomedicinal compounds that we're able to produce consistently from plants in a responsible way.
Yeah, I'm just super excited because there's so many opportunities here. There's so many enterprises and businesses that could come along and say, we'll help you do the studies. Oh, we did some of the studies here. Let's actually take a good, comprehensive, holistic look, and let's try to help everyone out there. Because, when we look at our whole, medical system, there's so many people dealing with so many new problems that are just coming up for people that are younger and younger. It's kind of terrifying out there. And I think, as you said, the kind of COVID era gave everyone a big wake up saying, I got to take care of myself. If I don't take care of myself, I'm going to be taken out by whatever else is going to be out there that will devastate and level my health. And sadly, a lot of the people who weren't taking their health seriously were the most affected by, the thing that was out there that was affecting everyone. Now, the Atlantic has an interesting article saying an uproar at the NIH It's not really an upwar. It's more of a revolution, I think. But they write how Jay Bhattacharya, the agency's director, has made a point of welcoming dissent. A letter from his officials will test that. And I think when a system isn't doing good, I think it needs dissent. I think it needs revolution. I think it needs outside thinking. I think it needs the new studies, the placebo studies that are going to be done right now that truly won't just be revolutionizing our kind of food or medical industry, but revolutionizing this country. Because if a country is fat, sick, and dying, we're not going to succeed. We're not going to be able to be a successful nation out there. We are the byproduct of who we are as human beings. And my mission in my life has always been, I want to be the best, the strongest, and I want to inspire other people to do the same. And if I could have that impact, and if I could leave an impact on people saying, look, go for that walk. Go take care of yourself. Go to the gym. Make sure you prioritize sleep. Make sure your body is running optimally with the proper nutrition that it needs to run. And people start really realizing, wow, this life is amazing. Sadly, there's so many people that are living a life of misery, of pain, of suffering, of inflammation. And it kind of pisses me off because they're a reflection of not just me and you, but they're a reflection of societies and countries. And I think this is the messaging that we need to take away.
It's that critical movement of change that's going from a sick care system to a true healthcare system.
Yeah, and I think you said it perfectly. And once we kind of prioritize that, I just kind of gave off what inspired me to do what I do, making myself kind of the guinea pig for a lot of this stuff. All those vitamins that I have on my wall here are me being a little guinea pig, testing it out, trying it out. Me doing all the tests that I'm going to be doing right now.
But the key thing is, you shouldn't have to do that because ultimately the consumer should be able to understand the solubility credentials of each of those supplements, the bioavailability credentials of each of the supplements, and then show me the efficacy credentials. It should be a standard of expectation of every single supplement that's being in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And that's going to really be able to separate those that deliver responsibly and those that don't deliver.
Yeah.
And that, I think this is where the administration will start to take the industry and responsibly streamline the industry, and it's going to have a significant positive impact on making sure that all the manufacturers are manufacturing with the highest levels of integrity and responsibility, and ultimately the consumer is going to be who wins and will have access to great products out there that they can trust from an efficacy anchored in solubility and bioavailability and clinical trials.
Yeah, and the consumer needs to be informed. We need to know what we're buying, and when we're buying it, we need to make sure that we're supporting companies that actually back up what they claim, release the studies, release the data. Mm-hmm. What information would you give to the consumer out there? Because there's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of little things, like a lot of people just start taking vitamin D, but they don't understand you got to take that with vitamin K and you got to take that with magnesium too, unless you're actually creating more damage and harm. That's like a little misnomer, but there's a lot of misnomers. What would you think are some of the top things that consumers should understand in this type of market?
Yeah, look, I think it's a great question. And for me, what we focused on as a company with our technology was all anchored in the power of blood flow. And consumers today are starting to understand, Luke, the critical importance of blood flow as the most important component of the body's operating mechanism. And I think this is a new realization that is coming to the consumer, specifically as the longevity movement starts to get stronger and stronger, because ultimately people are starting to understand that if your blood flow in your body is not operating at its optimal performance, right, the different systems in the body don't operate. And a good example, if you think about it, right, let's talk about the brain. The brain is 2% of the body mass, your body mass. It utilizes 20% of the oxygen of the body and 15% of the body's blood flow. That's probably the best manifestation of how important blood flow to the brain is in order to have the mental alertness. So more oxygen coming in to the peripheral part of the brain. The removal of cellular toxins is critical as far as being more mentally alert and being able to focus. How many people, there was an NIH study that showed 1 in 3 Americans today suffers from brain fog. You wake up in the morning and it takes you 3-4 hours, 5 cups of coffee to start to function. The way to solve that is improving blood flow to the brain, right? More oxygen, removal of cellular toxins. And so for us, our product, our Vinia product, which we've been demonstrated in a clinical trial, double-blind placebo, published in peer-reviewed scientific journal, to significantly increase arterial dilation. And through that increase in arterial dilation, you have more blood flow. People don't understand, and I'll throw you a number that I'm sure you'll remember. We have 60,000 miles of arteries, veins, and capillaries in our bodies. And we need to make sure that every mile of those 60,000 miles is operating like a 4-lane, 5-lane highway like you have here in Miami. We don't have those kind of highways in Israel. And you got to make sure that it's a 5-lane highway and not like a little side street, because the more blood flow you have, the more oxygen is being delivered to the body tissue cells, and the more nutrients being delivered to the body tissue cells and organs. You have more physical energy, you have more mental alertness, and you're able to get more out of life. You talked about your passion. Your mission is for people to maximize their potential, to maximize their impact in life. For me, it all comes back down to the power of blood flow, gives you the physical energy and the mental alertness that we need to operate in this very, very challenging world. And it's almost become, Luke, the new Maslow's hierarchy. We learn in psychology, of Maslow's hierarchy, the need for food, shelter, companionship. We pretty much, at least in the United States of America, we're all fortunate to have that. But who doesn't need more physical energy and more mental alertness in this challenging world?
Yeah.
And it all comes back down to looking after your body, treating your body like a temple, and that is able to maximize your performance and your contribution to the world. And blood flow is a critical tenet of this.
Yeah, you're not wrong about this, because when you look at what a lot of people do, especially with the coffee intake, they just wake up right away. They take their coffee, huge amounts of sugar, huge amounts of like fake artificial milk, and then they just mess up their adenosine system throughout the entire day, because that's the first thing on an empty stomach that they put down their gullets, which isn't the best thing you should do. And a lot of people over-abuse caffeine. Then with the oxygen stuff, you're right, because there's new studies now and new people doing EWAT therapy, which is oxygen-based exercising first thing in the morning. That's what I'm going to be getting into soon as well. I'm looking at different things to buy for me personally, because I want to try that out. There's hyperbaric chambers that a lot of people are using, that I used when I was down in Mexico, in Tijuana. They had a great healthcare facility that had those chambers available that I was using every single day when I was down there. And EWAT and hyperbaric chambers, what they do is they oxygenate your kind of body. You're saying you guys are also doing that in a way, but through supplementation. Is that correct?
Exactly right. You don't have to go to one of those expensive chambers. At the end of the day, what we did with our technology is we took the red grape. We took the cells of the red grape, and it's all actually anchored in the French paradox, which I'll touch on in a second. But from a technology perspective, we took cells from the red grape, from the flesh, from the skin, and from the seed. And we took those cells almost like a science experiment. We placed those cells in a petri dish, and we do thousands of experiments where we change the food we feed the cells, the different minerals and nutrients. We change the temperature, we change the lighting, and a bunch of other variables. And what we do is we got those cells to produce the exact same phytonutrients as are contained in the red grape. But importantly, we call this mirroring, but importantly, we magnified by changing the surroundings in a way that's non-GMO. We don't in any way, Luke, change the molecular structure. There's no change in the DNA or the RNA or anything like that. We're literally changing the surroundings so that the cell is able to push itself to elicit more of the phytonutrient that we want it to elicit. And we increase the levels of the pea seed resveratrol 100 times. Now, why is pea seed resveratrol so important? It goes back to the French paradox. The French paradox, and you go back to blue zones as well. French paradox, you have the French people, very fatty diet, lots of lipids, lots of pate, lots of cheeses, but they generally have amazing cardiovascular health. When the scientists went to understand exactly what was it that was driving their excellent cardiovascular health, they realized it was from moderate consumption of red wine. That's 2 to 3 glasses of red wine every single day. And when they looked to see what was it inside the red wine, they realized it was a hero polyphenol called pea seed resveratrol together with all the other polyphenols in the red wine. So when we magnified the levels of piceid resveratrol by 100 times, that allows us in every one of our capsules to have the same amount of piceid resveratrol as 1,000 red grapes or 1 bottle of red wine, no sugar, no alcohol, and no calories.
So you don't get drunk off of this thing.
You're not getting drunk, but you've got all the benefits of 1 bottle of red wine, no sugar, no calories, no alcohol, that your body is enjoying. Now, when we go back to those 60,000 miles, what happens when this piceid resveratrol is solubilized in the intestinal tract and then it moves into the blood plasma? It goes to the most critical localized area of the body of those 60,000 miles of arteries, capillaries, and veins, where we have literally hundreds of millions of endothelial cells. And what happens is when the piceid resveratrol and the other polyphenols work its way locally very quickly to those endothelial cells, we get the endothelial cells to increase the nitric oxide levels. And as you know, nitric oxide is a really important vasodilator. And as we get older, it declines significantly, starting around roughly at the age of the late 20s, early 30s, it declines significantly. So our Vinia penetrates very quickly into the endothelial cells, almost like we train the endothelial cells that line the 60,000 miles of arteries, veins, and capillaries to increase the nitric oxide. And then secondary, Luke, we have a second mechanism of action where we reduce ET1. Now, most people don't really understand what ET1 is. It's really, really important, and your viewership should understand. ET1 is a vasoconstrictor. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator. As you get older, your body produces less nitric oxide, and it has a double impact. Your body, your endothelial cells produce more of the bad stuff, ET1. So Vinia, and we've been able to show this in vitro testing as part of our mechanism of action, Vinia is able to increase significantly the nitric oxide and reduce the production of ET1, causing this amazing increase in arterial dilation and more blood flow, and all the benefits that accrue from blood flow. We talked about physical energy, mental alertness, shielding your body, your cells from oxidative damage. Right, that's really, really important. Helping to support the reduction, oxidation of LDL cholesterol, which is also really important. Maintaining blood pressure within already normal ranges, and on and on and on, demonstrating the power and the importance of blood flow. So if there's one message to send to your audience here today, the first one is for them to understand the importance as you move through the aging cycle to ensure that you're always working on optimizing the blood flow quality in your body, ensuring you have the arterial dilation, healthy arterial dilation levels, and improving blood flow and all the benefits that accrue from the oxygenation and the nutrients delivery and the removal of cellular toxins that come from that. Now, importantly, my second message is the fact that the plant kingdom out there has the solutions, right? And it just takes, companies like us to be able to bring these solutions with, disruptive technology that can bring these phytonutrients to consumers in a way that's consistent, in a way that's economically viable. Because, and now we'll go back to the pharmaceutical industry, if you think about it, the pharmaceutical industry started with the plant kingdom 70, 80 years ago. Some of the most important critical drugs today started with materials from the plant kingdom. But the pharmaceutical industry walked away from the plant kingdom because it was just too complicated. There were three major issues. The first issue was in the pharmaceutical industry, and understandably so, when you're dealing with a drug, you have to have standardization and consistency. It's very challenging to get consistency out of plants that are growing in an ecosystem. You get different rainfall patterns, you have different production of the phytonutrients. You get challenges with toxins in the soil, heavy metals, etc. It produces a different outcome. So this was the first challenge. The second challenge is, it's really interesting, the most important phytonutrients or phytomedicinal compounds in plants, Luke, they're found in the most minute levels inside the plant. The stuff that's not that important, you have very high levels. But the stuff that's really, really important is in the tiniest levels, and therefore you have to grow so many plants. And it's just not economically viable. And then the third reason, and this is super interesting, is traditionally you can't patent nature. So for these three reasons, and understandably, the pharmaceutical industry walked away from the plant kingdom and went towards chemical synthesis, where they synthesized one molecule from the plant in a laboratory. They got consistency. It was super cheap to do it, and they were able to get patents. So now fast forward 70 years. There's been amazing progression. Let's be honest. Let's give credit where it's due. There's been amazing progression in so many different therapies today from these technologies, from chemical synthesis, from biologics and biological synthesis. But we all know in the world that we live in, there are many, many challenges out there of underserved indications that we don't have the solutions for. How many orphan indications are there out there today that we don't have the solutions? But the solutions lie in the plant kingdom. And what's really inspiring to see, and we see it because we're engaging as a partner with very progressive pharmaceutical companies that are now saying, you know what? Plants, it was a blind spot for us. It's way more expensive today to get a molecule to be successful with chemical synthesis because all the easy ones have been done. And now we're starting to see, and it's really inspiring, chief medical officers of major pharmaceutical companies start to come back to the future, to come back to the plant kingdom, because they see that there's companies like us that can be the bridge with our technology, the way we grow our cells, and we are able to mirror and magnify. We lock the cell bank. We never go back to the plant. And then we can produce in these industrial scale bioreactors, these cells multiply and they produce the critical phytonutrients with unique consistency, economic viability, and we have the patents. So all of a sudden, we've solved those three problems for the pharmaceutical industry. We also open up our technology for the next generation of zero-calorie, non-nutritive natural sweeteners that are waiting to happen out there from specific rare plants out there. And we're doing this in a way which is preserving the planet for generations to come because we just take the plant once. So, I kind of feel like I have the best job in the world because we're at this cutting intersection of nature, of biotechnology, and at the same time, the tailwinds that the industry have because of a new administration, because of a realization, even with what President Trump did 3-4 weeks ago, when he did like the 80-20 rule upside down. He looked at the fact that the drug companies in America, literally the American population is 5% of the global population, but they represent 70 to 75% of revenue for drug companies comes from America.
Yep.
So this was major. Okay. On the same day, there was the tariff reduction, right? But the most important thing that happened to me on that day was the acknowledgement by the new administration that there's something wrong with that. 5% of the population, 75% of the revenue. If you want to make America healthy again, you have to change this. And so what that has started to drive, and we've started to see it already, is pharmaceutical companies starting to look at other technologies out there, right? Where they don't have to spend billions of dollars on developing the next compound. Maybe there's a biotech company out there that has cutting edge technology that can develop that next generation compound for them from the plant kingdom, bring it to them with unique consistency, predictability, and be able to work through the regulatory framework and be able to be a critical part of their R&D pipeline for the next generation of science-based therapeutic solutions. So we are seeing change from the impact that the new administration is happening. And it's super inspiring because people are starting to look at the world without blind spots and are starting to look at alternative ways of bringing game-changing therapeutic solutions to help address some of the major indications today that we're still grappling with. And by golly, there are still so many challenges that we face at this stage in the 21st century.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, especially when we look at the kind of changing of the medical industrial system from a holistic point of view into this kind of, let's just heal the symptoms here under this kind of like modern Rockefeller kind of system that all of us were kind of inundated into. And I do see the transformation kind of happen in real life. It is fascinating. It is amazing to actually have now doctors forced to be study nutrition and actually look
it's
into all
amazing.
of this.
It's amazing.
I'm just curious because you talked about a lot about oxygenating the body. What kind of feedback have you kind of received from your users, from the products? What has surprised you from the customer behavior from the business that you run?
So we're a very responsible company, and I always only focus on commenting as it relates to areas that we have empirical clinical research behind. But I think, as you mentioned, blood flow is so critical for our entire body system. So ultimately, when you're providing more oxygenation to all parts of your body, you're going to see benefits through all parts of your body. Benefits that you described, all the way, ultimate through you start to see benefits in skin health, right? More blood flow to basically the epidermis layer of the skin. It's going to help you with skin health. That's why I keep on going back to the fact that blood flow is just the most critical part of your body's operating mechanism. Another area which is really important to think about, which we've started to see significantly, is as it relates to gut health. People don't understand the relationship between blood flow and gut health. Well, think about it, right? When you have a large meal, you feel tired. Why? Because the blood's rushing from your brain, right, and other parts of your body to digest the food. You need to have good blood flow to be able to digest the food. You need to have good blood flow to absorb the nutrients. And you need to have good blood flow to deliver all those nutrients to the body tissue, cells, and organs. And I can go on and on and on to talk about the importance of blood flow on different systems within your body. It's ultimately it's like a minimum acceptable standard that if you want to have good quality of life, you need to have good blood flow.
Yep. And a lot of people just sit at that desk. They don't move around. They don't go for walks. I mean, the average amount of steps that we've been taking are so low compared to everything else.
The best way that I see it, it's kind of crazy. Like when I became CEO of this company and we built a direct-to-consumer business, I decided that every single customer review has to come into my inbox. So, fast forward now, we've been in the US 4 years. We have more than 9,400 verified reviews with a 4.8 out of 5 rating. And every single one of those reviews comes into my inbox. So when I'm exhausted after a long day, my pastime is to literally lie in bed and read those reviews. And that's really my source of inspiration as a CEO, to get up in the morning again and do what we do to break biological barriers. Yeah. And when you see, and I encourage the audience to go to our Vinia.com, look at the reviews, read the reviews, and you read the transformational change in people's lives by improving their blood flow, from more vascularity in the gym to people who are more on the aging cycle, where they have the level of mental alertness, they can do more. They have the ability to walk longer. When they're walking longer. They're walking 2 or 3 more miles than they used to. They're climbing more steps than they used to, right? And what's really critical today is that, the whole American dream of stopping at the age of 65 and retiring, it's gone. And I can't tell you how many people write to us and say, thank God for your product because I'm 74 years old and I still have a full-time job, right? And your product is able to give me the physical energy, the mental alertness to be able to get through the day at this age. And that for me is super inspiring. And probably the most inspiring for me is when I get messages from first responders, from firefighters, police officers, from emergency workers, military. We ship our product all around the world to different US bases, to different, to whether bases in Asia, in the Middle East, because it's a critical part of helping these first line responders do what they need to do in the most critical lines of responsibility in our community.
Yeah. In this economy, you're going to have to work. You're going to have to work a lot. But I actually do the same thing. At night, I usually try to read the comments from my YouTube channel to see what people are saying. There's a bunch of hilarious people always in the comment section that always make me laugh. I like self-deprecating humor too, but it is good to engage and to understand. Because we have the audience here. They're our customers. They give us our time. And I'm eternally grateful for their time, and I appreciate so much. So I want to reach out. I want to know who they are, and I want to know what they're thinking. I want to know what they're responding to with this type of content.
One of the other points which I think is really important is how we make health affordable. I want to bring this up because I know that you're very passionate about this. And I think that, we as companies that are providing these solutions, we have a responsibility to make health affordable. So a couple of things I wanted to share with you that we've implemented, and this is something that I try and drive very, very hard with my organization. The first line responders that I talked to you about, the first responders, as I say here in America, we give them a 20% discount for life. For life, Luke. So you come in, you register. If you're a firefighter, you have a specific firefighter number, police officer, we validate you, you get 20% off for life. Importantly as well, for our Vinia capsules, which is our core product, we came into the market in the US of A in May 2021. The price of a 3-month subscription was $99 for a 3-month subscription. So it's roughly $1 a day. Let's fast forward more than 4 years. If you go to our website, the price of a 3-month subscription is $99. We haven't changed the price. Show me another company out there, right? You might call me stupid, but we're a mission-based company. Democratizing life-changing compounds is really, really important for us. But show me another company out there that over the 4 years of significant inflation in the US market and just globally has kept their prices the same. This is because it's a principle-based decision to say, listen, our core product, we're maintaining our pricing. There's other ways. We've got to work harder to save costs in the supply chain. When you're scaling a business, you're able to get better gross profit margins. And this is really a principle-based decision that we've made as a company to be able to, because it's all about, when we look at the North Star of our company, it's all about discovering, developing, manufacturing, and democratizing life-changing compounds from plants that positively impact the health and wellness of hundreds of millions of people, but in a way, from a sustainability perspective, that preserves the planet for generations to come, because our technology utilizes a micro fraction of the land, a micro fraction of the water and the energy.
Yeah. You're right. Like, you look at everything, the price is just going up of everything. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty wild out there. I remember doing some reporting in Zimbabwe and Venezuela when the economies were crashing in those countries, and it feels like we're kind of very close to that type of situation. But with you running your business, where are you focusing on expanding next? What do you want to achieve over the next 5 years with BioHarvest?
So a couple of things. We have our platform technology, which I've explained, botanical synthesis. That platform technology feeds two businesses, a direct-to-consumer wellness business as well as a CDMO business, which I'll touch on in a second. In our direct-to-consumer wellness business, we have today all of our Vinia red grape cell super blood flow products, which we've talked about a lot today. We've talked a lot about the capsules. We also have a superfood coffee, which is an amazing product today. We've sold, since coming into the market about 16, 17 months ago, we've sold nearly $3 million of our coffee. It's an amazing coffee, 100% Arabica, premium coffee, tastes amazing, with one capsule of Vinia in every single K-Cup compatible coffee. We have a regular, we have a decaf. What's amazing about our regular is we talked before about America running on coffee, people needing 3-4 coffees. With our Vinia superfood coffee, you take one coffee in the morning. Yes, you get a little bit of a caffeine kick, but because of the seed resveratrol, you're able to have that 12 hours long lasting, and you just need one coffee a day. And then what's interesting in the decaf, Luke, in the decaf, we use the best decaffeinated coffee, which and as you probably know, for decaf today, many companies use chemical solvents in order to actually remove the
yeah, lots of decaf is just toxic out there. It's horrible for you.
So we work with a company called Swiss Water. It's a Canadian company, amazing company with Swiss Water technology, where they utilize a water extraction to take out the caffeine. There's zero chemicals. We don't use solvents in our products, so therefore I don't want to put any chemicals into the coffee that we use. So we use Swiss Water coffee, and now the consumer can get energy from decaf coffee without the jitters and without the crash, but it's energy through blood flow. So it's a perfect combination. And our decaf, we have a significant decaf business. We've also expanded that into a superfood tea line that we have. And you can see here, this is one of our trial packs. We have a variety pack. We have English breakfast tea, matcha green tea, a signature green tea, and a zero caffeine cranberry hibiscus tea. All our teas are organic. They're Rainforest Alliance certified. Every tea sachet has the equivalent of 1 capsule of Vinia inside every single tea sachet. So we're just giving different delivery mechanisms for US consumers. And then we've just launched our Vinia Super Chews and our Vinia 2X formula chews, I should say. We've just launched our Vinia 2X formula chews. And this is targeted, Luke, towards athletes, because athletes already have high oxygenation levels. They're looking for the edge. We found through a lot of working with athletes that they needed a double dosage to get the impact from their physical energy and mental alertness. And we've now provided this to them in a very unique chew format that is Inform Sport certified. So it passes all the banned substances. So we're not going to get any athletes into trouble. And this is a really, really critical testing of more than 250 banned substances that happens on every single batch. This is our portfolio today, leveraging the power of our Vinia red grape cell superfood, blood flow superfood. And what's next? And I've brought a small sample to show you what's next. I've been hiding it here behind me. This here.
Looks like it's illegal. The cops are going to bust down the door here.
No, I'm all good. They're going to be disappointed because they're going to find olive verboscoside cells.
Nice.
And so what we did, we talked about the power of the French paradox. Now we're talking about, go back to the blue zones, the power of the Mediterranean diet. And the power of the Mediterranean diet is anchored largely in olive oil and olives. So one of the most critical anti-inflammatory polyphenols in the olive is called verboscoside. So today, through our mirroring and magnification, I'm really proud to say we produce the highest levels of verboscoside in the world in our large-scale bioreactors. We've done the first round of in vitro testing where we took human liver cells and we were able to demonstrate the ability to significantly reduce the fat levels of the human liver cells. And if you look at the whole notion of Make America Healthy Again, today you sit with a major liver health problem in America.
Yeah, people have fatty liver without even sugar.
Yeah, exactly. And non-alcoholic fatty liver is a major, major challenge. And so we're working really hard now to go through the regulatory process on this product, to bring it as a disruptive supplement, to do the next round of clinical studies, double-blind placebo. This is how we roll. It's a lot of work, right, as you know, on these clinical trials. And we're hoping to bring this to the marketplace at the second half of next year.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people who are dealing with high cholesterol. They usually take a shot of olive oil in the morning as well. I have some olive oil too that I take in the morning. But instead of just having to take a shot, if you have something concentrated, that's even better and more powerful.
Talking about concentration, in every 100 milligrams of this material, it's the same amount of verboscoside as 2 liters of olive oil.
Wow, that's a lot.
This is the power of the technology, being able to harness the treasures that exist in the plant kingdom and to bring it to industry in a way that's consistent, predictable, and economically viable so that we can democratize the power of the plant kingdom. We just have to make sure that we're not abusing the plant kingdom, because we'll wake up and we see this, Kew Gardens, which is the botanical gardens in the UK. They published a report that talked about literally every single day we're losing tens of plants through extinction, deforestation. So this is a massive change. We have the treasure there. We have to protect the treasure.
Yeah. Are there any dangers, especially when it comes to taking like a highly concentrated dose of like grapes or olive oil? Through your studies, were there any kind of mishaps or accidents or mistakes you guys made?
You, as part of the protocols, you have to go through toxicity testing. You're also making sure that there's no adverse events. And we're really lucky that because part of it is because you're taking from the plant kingdom. Right. And as human beings, we've been living in the plant kingdom for thousands of years. It's not like when you're dealing with like immunogenicity issues that you have with a biologic. Right. So, fortunately today we have more than 50,000 active subscribers that are taking our products. And, we're really fortunate that the interactions are very, very limited. Right. Obviously, we always tell people that if you're on medication, you need to get the permission from your doctors. This is smart, right? Because, you need to be responsible in this area, and also it's our regulatory responsibilities. But yeah, we see an amazing synergy between our plant-based compounds and basically just a high quality of life for people.
I always tell people, do your own due diligence, do your own research, get as many opinions as you can, and look at the studies. I think that's the important aspect here that a lot of people just don't do. They're just like, I don't want to do any of the hard work. Tell me what to take. And I'm like, that's not what we're here to do.
I think where the administration is going to go is that I believe that where the future is going And I'm excited about the future. It may take 5 years, 10 years, but whatever's on the shelf, you're going to have a minimum acceptable level of studies. And, it might be, as we've talked about, solubility, bioavailability, and then show me the appropriate clinical trial that backs your claims.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, I want people to get to know you a little bit better. How did your background shape you, who you are, your vision, and what does success look like for you personally in this space?
Wow. That's a deep, deep question.
I don't like asking, I like asking, we want to get to know you, who you really are.
You ask questions that penetrate the heart. Look, I'm a very spiritual person, and I believe that everything happens for a reason. There's God's hand in everything that happens. And, I came to the biotech world, at the age of 45. So kind of like, the third trimester of my professional career. And there's parts of me that very much say, I wish I would have started my career in biotech, because this has been the best 5 years of my life. And pretty much Sunday was my 5th anniversary as CEO of BioHarvest Sciences. And as I said, it's been an amazing journey as we build a movement of change to help people understand that there's massive treasure in the plant kingdom that technologies like ours can unlock. But there's no ways I could have been effective to scale the business with the best scientists in the world who had done all the hard work, all the clinical work, all the technology work, all the regulatory work. What I brought to the business was just the experience of bringing this amazing work to the marketplace in a way that consumers could understand. And I was privileged to have an 18-year career working at the Coca-Cola company, learning how to do consumer-led marketing. And then I left the Coca-Cola company in 2014, and I went into the high-tech world as an entrepreneur, building with 2 partners, a big data, IoT, and software company that we had a lot of luck, and we were able to exit very well to one of the largest beer company. It was technology that was used in the beverage industry. So for me, after that, let's call it the first 25 years of my career, I was really looking to the next stage of my career to build legacy. It was all about how can I, as a human being, maximize my experience to drive impact and legacy in the world. And I go back to the fact that, today I have 3 children, blessed with 3 children, been married, beautiful, amazing lady for 26 years, childhood sweetheart. I have a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, and I have a 13-year-old, 2 boys and a little princess. She'll get upset with me if I call her a little princess. But basically, for my wife and I, it took us a little while to have children. And I always think to myself, like, if I was today thinking about having children, would I want to bring 3 children into this world? And I'm not sure I'd want to bring that many children into this world, because it's pretty scary, right? It's pretty scary when you look at everything that we're dealing with, what we've talked about today, in the context of the nutrition, the lack of nutrition, the nutrition factor, in the context of the heavy metals, the toxins. We've got to ask ourselves, what kind of water will our grandchildren be consuming? What kind of fruits and veggies will our grandchildren be consuming? How are we going to feed 10 billion consumers? So, with all of those questions, that for me, I kind of felt that this role in this company was perfect for me, because I feel that technologies like ours start to answer those really, really tough questions that people have about how the world is going to look in the future, how the world's going to look like in the next 25 years. Because I hope that, whilst we're the leader and we've been first out of the market, we've been doing this for 17 years. The company was founded in 2008. And we've developed a very mature technology today, the botanical synthesis technology. It's scaled, it's mature. I really hope, Luke, that in the next 5 years, there's another 100 companies, maybe 1,000 companies that have similar technologies to ours, because ultimately there's 500,000 plants out there. We can't do every plant. We will build the company and develop, maybe it's 5, 10 life-changing compounds out there from plants. But there's enough space for so many people out there, so many companies out there, to be bringing these really unique solutions, unlocking the secrets of cellular plant biology from all of these plants. We can't do it all. I just want to make sure, I'm a competitive person, if you haven't realized. I want to make sure that we just lead the pack, that we're the leader, right? Because we started this movement of change, and we want to continue leading this movement of change and really set the standard, set the standard for the industry. And that's really, ultimately, my vision, that over the next 10 years, we utilize technologies like ours to change the way we bring plant-based nutrition to the market, to change the way that the pharmaceutical companies, that we give them another option as it relates to biological compounds derived from plants, to be able to address certain indications that today are under-addressed or have not yet been addressed, and can be done in a way that's not ridiculously expensive. We've done it in a way like today, our company, we have a contract, for example, with a NASDAQ-listed pharmaceutical company that has an approved drug. And this company came to us and said, look, we have a specific biological material that comes from a plant that is very challenged from a supply chain perspective as it relates to consistency, geopolitical stability that you talked about a little bit earlier. We want you to utilize your technology to bring for us stability to our business, because it's a really important approved drug for the future. And so we've partnered with this company, and we've now been able to, we announced 2 months ago that we were able to produce the biological compound in our Petri dish level, and now we're taking it into small bioreactors. And in the next 18 months, we hope to be producing this at large scale. Another contract we have in our what we call our CDMO business is with the largest sweetener company in the world, called Tate & Lyle. And Tate & Lyle have they're an amazing company, they have amazing science, and they scoured the world to look for plants that had unique sweet proteins that could ultimately be the source of replacing the biggest evil, which is sugar. And so once they understood our technology, we signed an agreement with them, and today we're working on the next generation of non-nutritive, natural, non-nutritive, plant-based sweeteners, and ultimately, which are going to come from plants today that we haven't yet explored, because there haven't been the technologies to be able to magnify the actual sweet proteins and produce it in a way with large-scale bioreactors that is democratizable, so you can get to the levels of affordability where the average consumer in the street has access to the best level of nutrition. And that's the vision, that's the dream. We're making great progress. We still got a long way to go, but this really is the legacy that we're trying to leave as a company. And I always say to our shareholders, I say the number one thing for us to be driving every single day is what I call human utility value. Human utility value is driving a transformational, positive change in people's health and wellness. And when you drive human utility value first, the shareholder value follows. And it's in that order.
Yep. And your legacy matters, and what impact you have. I think that's the most important one that, a lot of people need to think about a little bit more. I had 2 people come to me like, you gotta check out my friend Elon, you gotta see what he's doing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm interested. I looked into a little bit into your stuff. I'm going to be testing and taking some of the stuff myself. We set up a special promo code for everyone to get people 10% off on Vinia.com. We'll have the link down in the description below. The promo code CHANGE10 is what you could use, get 10% off of your purchase this year. I'm excited to test this stuff out. I haven't tested it out yet, but I'm going to test it out after my blood test results. Then I'll be able to look at my blood test, see if there actually is any difference here. So I'm excited about that.
It'll be great, but you will feel, as we say to people, for best results based on our clinical trial, take the product for 90 days. And importantly, we have such conviction in our results that we give a 90-day money-back guarantee. No questions asked. You don't have to send us anything. You call our customer success team. If you really don't feel the impact, and it happens very, very seldom, we give you your money back, no questions asked, because you will feel in those 90 days, you'll feel the benefits of increased arterial dilation, more blood flow, more oxygenation. You'll start to feel more physical energy. Even you, Luke, who does a lot every day, will be able to do more, and you'll be waking up in the morning, opening up those blue eyes, and that brain's going to be pumping and going to be working and driving value and doing everything that you do to really be as provocative as you are in a positive way to leave your legacy. And I thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. It's good to work with companies that are making a good impact and doing some cool, creative, fun things in the space, because I think a lot of it is just very stagnant and not very kind of revolutionary. So I like looking into this stuff. I like testing this stuff out. I'm going to be testing it out myself. More information will be there. Anything else you wanted to leave us with, Elon? Anything else you want to say to our audience out there?
Look, we've covered a lot of ground in the last, I don't know, boy, what are you looking at? It's been about an hour, Luke.
Hour, 10 minutes,
Hour
I
and
think.
10 minutes,
Yep,
okay.
yep.
And it's been a great discussion. I think for your audience, leaving this discussion just in understanding that there are amazing, amazing solutions out there that exist in our plant kingdom. There's a reason why we have 500,000 plants out there. There are companies today like ours, and there'll be more in the future, that know how to access and unlock that amazing treasure that exists as it relates to the phytonutrients or phytomedicinal compounds. And for you to be open-minded, start looking open-minded, and now go back to the core of what we've discussed. As you look at nutritional solutions, make sure you're working with companies that have the solubility credentials, have the bioavailability credentials, as Luke started in the discussion, have clinical trials to demonstrate the claims that they're making, the structure function claims that they're making, and ultimately are operating at the highest level from a moral compass perspective and being responsible in the marketplace. And this is really, really important. And then remember the importance of blood flow in your life. And whether it's our products or other products out there, just understand that better blood flow gives you a better life. And I think those three messages, Luke, we've done a lot of hopefully good work today in driving and starting to drive human utility value by educating the audience out there and helping them to think about how they maximize their potential through better blood flow.
Absolutely, 100%. Do your own homework, do your own research, and if you're listening to this, and maybe go for a walk. Try to get moving. Do your homework. Do your research. Elon, this was great. Thank you so much for providing us so much insight into the industry, so much insight into your business, your company. It's great to kind of partner up with you. It's going to be interesting to take some of the stuff. I'm super excited about my own kind of health journey. I know it's not easy. I know it's kind of daunting for some people, but I hope we helped you. And if you thought we did, share this video with your friends and family members. I appreciate you guys so much. Stay tuned for more, all here exclusively on youtube.com/wearechange.